News warns of a second-term dictatorship if Donald Trump is reelected. The fake news, Democrats, and RINOs call Donald Trump a dictator. But dictators are not honestly elected or reelected. They are installed like Dictator Joe Biden has been for the past 50 years. Donald Trump won in 2016 and he won again in 2020, but the Democrat Party of slavery, their fake news, RINOs, and foreigners stole the 2020 elections from Americans and from Donald Trump. Then they trafficked nonstop tens of millions of unvetted, lawless, and poor foreigners to the USA and sent them all over the country to help Dictator Joe and Dictator Democrats rig and steal elections from Americans even more. Yet the fake news ignores it all. I'd like to read just a few of the headlines in the fake news calling Donald Trump a dictator to show you how the fake news is controlled by Dictator Joe and Dictator Democrats and how they brainwash people 24/7, 365 days a year. Because if an ignorant person hears something enough times, they will believe it. Then I'm going to explain how Joe Biden is the dictator. An MSNBC headline says, coup bombshell, Trump busted for dictator plot as trials loom. An AFP and Yahoo News headline says, Dictator Trump, warning spook America. A Washington Post headline says, a Trump dictatorship is increasingly inevitable. We should stop pretending. A Chicago Tribune headline says, Trump's fake news crusade is right out of dictator playbook. A CNN headline says, Acosta, Trump is a dictator making a comeback. A Salon headline reads, Americans are sleepwalking into a Trump dictatorship. An LA Times headline said, Trump is running as a ruthless dictator. He and the GOP must be defeated. A People's World headline says, Trump dictatorship plans worse than we realize. A USA Today headline says, Donald Trump acts like someone who wants to be a dictator. An American Prospect headline is, Donald Trump is plotting to make himself a dictator. Vanity Fair headline says, Trump makes it clear he'd be an out-and-out dictator if reelected in 2024. A People's Magazine headline says, everything President Trump has said that sounds like he longs to be a dictator. Then in parentheses it said, no, really. A headline from The Nation is, Republicans have made it clear they will let Trump become a dictator. And the list goes on and on and on. Fake news headlines keep coming out about Donald Trump being a dictator, and they have been for the past 8 years. If you Google Donald Trump dictator, you can see what I'm talking about. It never stops. 1 hour ago, 4 hours ago, 7 hours ago, 15 hours ago. The headlines never stop from the fake news about Donald Trump being a dictator. But Joe Biden is the dictator. However, if you Google Joe Biden dictator, you won't see any headlines about Joe Biden being a dictator because Joe Biden really is a dictator who controls the fake news and the mainstream media. Joe Biden is an illegitimate president who has been in office for 50 years. He is a modern-day dictator of a very brainwashed and ignorant country. But it's not just the fake news who calls Donald Trump a dictator. It's also lying and cheating Democrats and RINOs. For those of you who don't know what a RINO is spelled R-I-N-O, not R-H-I-N-O. It stands for Republican in name only. RINOs are Democrats who have infiltrated the Republican Party. Dick Cheney's daughter, Liz Cheney, and Chris Christie are two great examples of RINOs. Lying, cheating communist Democrat Hillary Clinton recently compared Donald Trump to Adolf Hitler as she warned of Trump's dictatorial, authoritarian tendencies. The brainwashed, lying morons repeat that Trump is just like Hitler on social media. Lying, cheating communist Democrat Claire McCaskill said, Donald Trump more dangerous than Hitler and Mussolini. Lying, cheating communist Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz said Trump believes he was elected as a dictator. Lying, cheating communist Democrat Jerry Nadler called Trump a dictator. Chris Christie said Donald Trump acts like someone who wants to be a dictator ahead of the 2024 election. Rhino Dick Cheney's daughter, Liz Cheney, said the U.S. is sleepwalking into a dictatorship if Donald Trump wins. Lying and cheating Democrats, RINOs, and their fake news want people to think that Donald Trump is a dictator and that if he is reelected, he will be a full-blown dictator, which is absurd because dictators are not elected. They are installed like Joe Biden has been for the past 50 years. A dictator is defined as a ruler with total power over a country, typically one who has obtained control by force. Dictator Joe obtains power by the force of election fraud. A definition of dictator in government is a dictator is a ruler who has total control over a country with no checks and balances to prevent abuse of power. That defines dictator Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the dictator, not Donald Trump. Let me tell you why. Number one, dictators work in government for decades. Joe Biden has been in office for the past 50 years, as opposed to Donald Trump being in office for only 4 years. Joe Biden was in the U.S. Senate for 36 years. He was first elected to the Senate in 1972. Dictator Joe Biden, the moron, puppet, and criminal, was supposedly reelected in 1978, 1984, 1990, 1996, 2002, and 2008. Then, in 2009, Illegitimate Joe was installed again as Barack Obama's vice president for 8 more years. Then, in 2020, Illegitimate Joe the Dictator was installed again as our fake president. But he was not reelected all those times. The Democrat Party, RINOs, and foreigners rig and cheat America's elections for Dictator Joe Biden. Then they traffic and smuggle nonstop tens of millions of unvetted and lawless foreigners to the USA and send them all over America to help Dictator Joe and Dictator Democrats rig and cheat our elections even more. Number two, dictators do not make America great. They do not make the economy good for all Americans. Dictators destroy their economies like Joe Biden and Democrats are doing to us right now. Number three, dictators do not follow laws. Illegitimate Joe does not follow laws. Look at the news coming out about Joe Biden's 20 shell companies, his crimes, and his money laundering to himself and to his family. Comer just revealed how Joe Biden received laundered China money, for God's sakes. Look at what Joe Biden is doing at the U.S. borders. He does not follow state or federal immigration laws. After stealing elections from us, Illegitimate Joe the Dictator is trafficking nonstop tens of millions of unvetted and lawless foreigners to the USA and sending them all over America constantly to help Democrats rig and cheat U.S. elections. What Illegitimate Joe the Dictator is doing at the U.S. borders is against federal and state laws. But Illegitimate Joe has no checks and balances. No one has been able to stop him. Yet in 2020, the majority of Americans voted for Donald Trump to secure the U.S. borders and stop illegal immigration. We overwhelmingly voted to put America's well-being and national security before that of illegal aliens and illegal migrants. But the fake news and education system does not report or teach about Joe Biden and the Democrat Party's slaveries, child trafficking, child sex trafficking, human trafficking, and sex trafficking, or about how Dictator Joe and Dictator Democrats use and bribe the lawless and poor foreigners to rig and cheat our elections. Number 4, dictators force gun control. Joe Biden is always signing executive orders for more gun control laws. Joe Biden, the dictator, signed the most significant U.S. gun control bill in the past 30 years. Dictator Joe is constantly urging stricter gun control for Americans while he's surrounded by armed bodyguards, just like your typical dictator does. Dictator Joe Biden has signed so many executive order gun control laws that are disguised as gun violence prevention laws. Joe Biden, the dictator, would most certainly take all of our guns if he could, but he can't because we have the Second Amendment and an armed population who will not allow the government to take our guns. Number 5, dictators kill their own people. Joe Biden was first elected to the Senate in 1972. Since 1973, dictator Joe Biden has helped kill over 63 million unborn American babies in abortions. Unknown millions of those babies could feel the pain of their abortion. Adolf Hitler, he killed 17 million people, but Joe Biden has helped kill 63 million babies. Not to mention Joe Biden, the dictator's human trafficking of unvetted and criminal illegal aliens and illegal migrants and lack of border security for the past 50 years gets Americans killed every day and in every state. So that only adds to his genocide of Americans. Number 6, dictators lie. Joe Biden has lied almost every single day of his 50-year-long career in government, yet the fake news and the Democrats ignore his thousands of lies. Then, Democrats and their fake news, they call Donald Trump a liar even though Donald Trump tells the truth. Number 7, dictators steal elections. Joe Biden has been in office for 50 years. I can't say that enough. Illegitimate Joe did not honestly win all of those elections. And the proof of Dictator Joe's election fraud over his time in office for 50 years is out there for everyone to see, but the fake news does not report it, and Dictator Joe and dictator Democrats censor the truth about election fraud by the Democrat Party of slavery. Dictator Joe and dictator Democrats censor Americans constantly because they are dictators. Number 8, my final reason that Joe Biden, the dictator, and his Democrat Party are dictators is because dictators control the media and the public education system. Dictator Joe and his dictatorial Democrat Party of slavery definitely control the media. They definitely control the public education system. That is why the mainstream media and the public education system in America do not report or teach about illegitimate Joe's crimes, lies, election fraud, human trafficking, and much more. They don't report or teach the truth about the Democrat Party of slavery. Instead, they say, oh, the two parties switched, and then call Republicans racist every single day for life. The media and public education system in America lie and censor the truth for dictator Joe Biden and his dictatorial Democrat Party of slavery. The fake news and public education system try their hardest to make illegitimate Joe, the dictator, look like he's doing a great job as president. But Dictator Joe is a bumbling idiot and criminal, and he always has been. Yet the fake news and public education system cover it up. Instead, they say that Dictator Joe is a great president. They say inflation is going down while manipulating numbers, lying, and defending Joe Biden, the dictator, constantly. They do this because Joe Biden is a dictator and he controls the mainstream media and the public education system. This is obvious for everyone to see who is not a brainwashed, lying moron who lives inside the matrix. Even if Donald Trump wanted to be a dictator, which he does not, but let's say that he did, there is no way that Donald Trump, the Republican, could get away with being a dictator because the media, Democrats, RINOs, and public education system would not allow it like they do dictator Joe Biden. The only way for Donald Trump to be a dictator is if he was a Democrat. Then Democrat politicians, RINOs, and the fake news and the public education system would ignore it just like they do Joe Biden for the past 50 years. In conclusion, Donald Trump does none of the things that dictators do. Donald Trump has only been in office for 4 years. Illegitimate Joe has been in office for 50 years, yet the fake news, Democrats, and RINOs call Donald Trump a dictator because they think Americans are stupid and brainwashed enough to believe it. And unfortunately, millions of Americans are. Dictators do not make the economy better for everyone. Instead, they do what dictator Joe Biden is doing to us every single day. Donald Trump does not push for gun control and sign executive orders restricting gun rights for law-abiding Americans. Donald Trump does not kill Americans. Instead, he tries to secure the U.S. borders and lessen abortion rates. Donald Trump puts Americans' well-being and national security first, unlike dictator Joe, who traffics nonstop tens of millions of unvetted foreigners all over the USA constantly. Donald Trump does not lie, but Joe Biden has lied almost every single day for the past 50 years while in office. But his supporters have no clue about his lies and or simply do not care because they are liars and criminals too. Donald Trump does not steal elections. He got the elections stolen from him by dictator Joe and his dictatorial Democrats, RINOs, and their fake news. Then Joe's criminal and illegitimate DOJ tries to put Donald Trump in jail for trying to overturn the fraudulent 2020 elections. Finally, Donald Trump does not control the media or the public education system, but dictator Joe and dictator Democrats do control the media and do control the public education system. Yet despite all of this, the fake news, Democrats, and RINOs call Donald Trump a dictator because they know if they say it enough times, people will believe it. It's always worked in the past, so why would they stop now? The truth is, dictator Joe Biden and his dictatorial Democrat Party of slavery are the illegitimate and criminal U.S. government that Democrat voters and Democrat politicians claim to hate and resist. Illegitimate Joe Biden is a genocidal dictator whose policies get Americans killed every single day. But people can't see it because they have been brainwashed and left ignorant by dictator Joe and dictator Democrats who control the media and the public education system. Prison for dictator Joe Biden.